Welcome,
I
welcome.
love that. Hello.
I'm excited about tonight's topics because we've touched upon them before as a group. So it's kind of like rehashing it, which I think is exciting. And I want to be clear right now, like especially after doing that poll in the group, mom guilt is going to come up multiple times. So it's like I almost feel like anytime we cover a big topic, there's probably going to be a little segment about that, like navigating mom guilt. Because I feel like there is this part of motherhood that for some reason, like unless we feel like we're giving 100%, which we know is not sustainable to our children, we get almost like this little bit of mom guilt, you know? So I think anytime we are tackling these big ideas and these aspects of self-care, self-awareness, taking care of ourselves, I think there's going to be an underlying, like, how do I deal with those emotions that come after this, you know? So that's exciting to me. Like a lot of people voted for mom guilt and it was very eye-opening and it made me kind of think about that. Like that's going to be talked about all the time because I do think as moms at any age children at any stage of our lives that comes in, you know, it comes into play. So in terms of like self-advocation tonight, I'm excited because obviously like my wheelhouse is self-care and obviously from all angles, right? Nutrition, healthy habits, transformation, like all of the things. Self-advocation really comes and boils down to this idea of self-awareness that many people do not realize need to be tackled first. Because I'm going to be honest, like there has been times in my life where I thought that just taking a shower or like doing laundry or going grocery shopping was me time. I thought that like just escaping my kids for a few minutes to do a chore, I thought that counted. And I'm not saying like if that fills your cup, do you, that's great, but it doesn't fill my cup. I leave those tasks feeling exhausted and like I did when I started them. And so that to me is the trigger, right? Like I am not doing this action and finding fulfillment from it, aka not self-care. Are they tasks that I need to carve out time for? Yeah, I do, of course. Like I get it, but it doesn't count as self-care. And that took a lot of self-awareness and practice for me to be able to like feel that energy and know like what am I doing that is actually filling my cup? Like, what can I do every day? And it's trial and error, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna try this. Let's see how this feels. Nope, that didn't feel good. Let me try this. Oh, I like this. I come back to my kids a little more energized after that. I'm gonna do that again. So, like, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about what that awareness looks like for you. How have you grown in your self-awareness? And like, how do you advocate for what you need in your life, whether that be with your kids, with your spouses, with your friends, like all the above. Okay. So I think hop in when needed, but yeah, no, take it away. Any of you. I could see it. Come on, you got this, Alex. Or Chloe, get it.
I'm sitting the laptop, not the tablet. Once again, technology is my best friend. So I think the biggest thing when it comes to moms and mom guilt and burnout and any of that, you need to really take into consideration that self-care. And like you said, grocery shopping is not at all what I consider to be a going out and I find that to be that chore that I need to do, or that thing I need to get done because I don't want to feel guilty, not just as a parent, but as a spouse too, because being a stay-at-home parent, my husband goes to work all day, he supports us, and yes, he will go grocery shopping, do whatever he needs to do, but I'm thinking to myself, well, what am I doing all day? And I don't put into consideration what I am doing all day. So in a way, you need to, the way I see it is, we're kind of like a bank, okay? We're an energy bank. We don't want to have our bank accounts emptied ever, right? So why would we want our energy empty? So we need to find that time for ourselves to, deliberate time for ourselves so that we can fill that bank account back up. And, call a friend, go and get a drink, go and get a coffee. It doesn't matter what it is. Go and get your nails done. Just do something for yourself. Hell, go in the bedroom or even in the bathtub, lock yourself with that shower curtain, read a book. Doesn't matter. Just take that time for yourself and make sure you have that moment, because if you don't have that moment, you're not going to find yourself again. And I've grown personally out of myself. I have that guilt, but I'm with them all day. So I need to find that time where I'm like, you know what? I'm not guilty. I'm going to go. I'm going to shut the door. You guys knock on the door. I'm probably going to answer it. But if you guys are doing this, I'm going to sit there and have mommy time. It's me time. I'm going to watch a movie, read a book, watch a show, do whatever I want to do for 30 minutes. And that's it. Workout, 30 minutes. But I just find it, you need to find that energy bank again. And if you don't find that, then you're really going to not only hurt yourself and flaw yourself for the rest of your life, but you're going to ruin it with your kids too, because they're going to see how you can't function without the guilt. How are they going to do it? So I pace myself to make sure that I show them, hey, you don't want to play with Sissy? Okay. You don't want to play with your brother? Okay. Take 30 minutes for yourself. If you guys find something you want to do mutually, cool. Mommy does the same thing. Daddy does the same thing. We're going to do that so that we can find our own patterns. And it's a long time, but we finally have gotten to that place where we can do that. And it's a breath of freaking fresh air.
I love that. I think the self-care is fluid, I'll say. So sometimes I think of lots of different factors. What are my constraints in that moment of need? What's my goal in that space or my purpose? And then I navigate on that. So sometimes, like you guys said, yeah, like if you have the ability to leave and go out and make time with friends, 100%, right? But sometimes I feel like I have like a need when I'm the only one watching my little one. And sometimes that self-care, as small as it might seem, is me saying, and I do this, I feel like I was doing this too much with my daughter, is like, well, what do you want to do? What would you like for lunch? What would you like to do next? And it becomes her world, right? And I'm just kind of living in it. I'm kind of just like hanging out. And so I realized, oh, you know what? I need to get outside. I'm going to be a nicer human if I spend some time outside. And sometimes self-care in that moment is just that. Sometimes self-care is being like, oh, dang, I feel like she's watched a ton of TV today, but I need a 20-minute shower because I've been up all night and I'm exhausted. And I feel like that will help me feel more human. And you let her watch a little extra TV and you hop in that shower and you just chill for 20 minutes, So to me, it's like, what is the situation? How do I navigate within it? And then how do I also still fill my cup while also filling her needs, and that helps me. And then I feel like the guilt, I was reflecting a lot on this and I'm like, well, why do we even feel mom guilt? Right. And this is something I was thinking about, like, I think the reason why that happens is because we construct an idea of what it is to be a mom. We create standards, we create expectations, and the second you make a choice that conflicts with that standard, you feel that guilt. So what the real goal is redefining your standard. It's redefining what that box looks like, that role, whatever it is, and then that's how you break it. That's how you break guilt forever, so that you can have that freedom, right? It's that like constant redefinition and then actually adopting that new view.
Yes. I love that. I was literally thinking about that as you were talking. Like, I had the vision that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And then when I went to work, the amount of guilt I felt going to work was almost debilitating. Like, it was bad when I was like dropping off at daycare and the thoughts that someone else was raising my kid for more hours in the day than I was, and all the things. But it was because I had this expectation that life should be this way. This is what I wanted when I was younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so flipping that script on, like, well, you know what? Now I'm, able to do other things or be other way, that I'm still pursuing my career. Like, it didn't work out where I was. So like, things evolve, and I was home for a little while too, but I love that thought. And like Chantal, when you were talking, trying to think of like what you said right at the beginning, but it's all an evolution, right? Like, it's changed. My kids are a lot older now. I can't say that guilt doesn't happen sometimes, but a lot of it is redefining like the story that we think our lives should be, right? And then just giving ourselves permission to explore things. So, this is what it was. Like sometimes actually the grocery store or like a Target run was literally like my self-care at one point, because it was just enjoyable. And to be honest, now going to the store by myself is way better than bringing my children, and they're 10 and 15. And I still like have a much better time, and I can like actually think about what I'm buying. And so sometimes I think just shifting your perspective and being in the moment on whatever you're doing, even if it is a chore, can actually feel more fulfilling than if we put it on a list as like a chore, right? So it's like just being in the moment of that. But then also allowing ourselves to explore, what do we even like to do? I mean, there was definitely a time when my kids were young that someone asked me what I like to do in my spare time, and I was like, I don't know. Like when I was 20, I scrapbooked, but I haven't done that in 10 years, like I literally couldn't even answer what I like to do, so it was like, and it was just like the getting in that stuck mode of like doing. And now, 15 plus years later of motherhood, I'm literally redefining it again this year of like, what am I looking for? I'm looking to have fun as I continue to evolve and pursue who I truly am. Like, I think it's just like a constant thing. But I will tell you, I don't really feel guilty about it anymore. Like, I used to rearrange and ask my children, like Alex, when you were like, oh, what do you want to do? And like, I'd be like, what do you want to do? What do you want to eat? Yada, yada. But then like my ex-husband would be like, this is what we're having for dinner. Like, you don't have a choice. But I was always like, oh, like, what do we want? And like, no, like sometimes it's just easier to just like, this is what I want to eat, so this is what we are having. And like, I don't really feel so guilty about it anymore. But really the reason why I don't feel guilty is because I am the example for them on how to live their life later and how to put themselves first. Right. Yeah. So like always reminding myself to flip that script, that yes, I'm still a human. I'm my own person. My children will always be in the forefront of my mind when I make decisions and choices, but they are not the driver of that anymore. Like, it is about me. They'll always be in the decision making. They'll always be there. Right. But like, we teach them by us taking care of ourselves and us like dropping that guilt and finding ways to shift that guilt. That's opening the door for them, right? Like later. But I mean, I can't say I don't ever feel it, but it's been a 15-year process of like feeling less and less and less of it. Like, I still feel guilty if I miss a game sometimes, like, oh, I haven't been to a game in a while, but you know what? I really wanted to go to that women's circle and I'm going because that's
Right.
for me,
Well, it's all about balance too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's when things start to feel out of balance, right? I think that's the other piece too, is that's when we start to feel that guilt too. So, like, if I was thinking about my self care and when I was starting to work again, because I also had that same view, Jill, like, oh, my mom was a stay at home mom. I loved my mom. She was the best mom in the world. I want to be my mom. And that's really what I was the first year of my little one's life, is like try to redo being my mom. And then I was like, wait, no, I actually need to feed my mind and go back to work.
I'll go off of that and what you, Jill, had said too. But our biggest thing as moms is we have this incessant voice in the back of our head constantly that we are doing something wrong. And we need to change that. We need to constantly, try and one up. We have to follow those super moms on social media because they do the organizing this way and they're able to get their makeup and hair done and look this way and everything is roses and daisies. But we have to stop with the guilt that we don't have that type of lifestyle while we're taking care of our children. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we just need to find that voice and push it forward and realize the positive we do in the day over the negative we do in the day. Because whereas we think, oh crap, I didn't wash the dishes today. I didn't get to do that. And I didn't get to pick up the toys, or I didn't get to the laundry today. Well, guess what? We didn't get to it. But you know what? We're all going to bed happy and healthy at night. So that's a kudos to us. We fed our kids that night. We gave our loves that night. We may have raised our voices a couple of times, but that's okay because that is being a parent. And we need to start seeing more of the positives that we do and wash away those negatives as fast as we can. Just let them, raft down that river. Bye, go away. And that's one of the biggest things I think with moms is getting rid of that negativity and trying to say, hey, you know what? Today I did this, this, and this rather than this, 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 and this snaps to me. And Absolutely. Doing that, as we always reiterate, our kids see it and then they perform that themselves throughout their days and throughout their lives. But if we're continuously negative, they're going to be negative, especially as a stay-at-home mom. They see me all day, every day. If I sit there and I'm, oh, I hate myself. Oh, I didn't do this. What a waste of life. But they're going to start saying that about themselves. I'm stupid, da, da, da. So we have to portray ourselves as that super mom in a different way than what we see in the world today.
Mm-hmm. You know what I heard once, and it like changed the way that I viewed like just motherhood and raising kids too. It was like somebody, I don't even remember where it was, and I wish that I did, but somebody basically said, or I had heard, like, you were literally created for your children. Like, there is nobody on this planet that is better for your kids than you.
Right.
Bottom line. And like, I think a lot of this guilt, like all of us have been saying, is it comes down to those expectations and wanting to fit ourselves into like this box of whatever we decided was was supposed to be the super mom. I honestly, a lot of times I credit for me personally in my experiences. A lot of it is like the shows or growing up in situations where like the stay-at-home mom did all the things, and in movies, it's like a lot of the stuff that you have just picked up along the way. Like, Alex, I always love your analogy of the seashells. Like, you've picked up all these nuggets on your journey, and now you're sitting here as a mom and you got your bucket. And I feel like when you're having your first kid, you're like, I got my bucket. I know how to be a mom. Like, I got this. And I don't know about you guys, but like, I think it's the expectations. It's what we thought it was going to be that actually ends up being, I think, our worst enemy, is that expectation of what we thought it was supposed to be. And when we're so busy fighting that guilt and fighting that negative energy, we're missing like what's happening before our eyes. Like, our skills and our values and our morals and our love for our kids, there's nobody else that can give them better. And our kids are only going to flourish if they're getting our authentic selves. Because like really what's going to happen is if we're like just shoving ourselves in a box all the time and like trying to be something that we're not, our kids are going to turn into something they're not. You know, because all they're going to do, like, I think it's that generational trauma. I hear about it all the time. And I love that. I think this generation, like, amen to trying to break generational trauma. And I don't mean that like that. I hope my mom doesn't watch this. I had a great upbringing. And my mom was beautiful. But it's not even just when I say generational trauma, it's not about like your mom, your grandparent. It's everything. It's the world. You know, like when you're raising children in 2024, it looks different than it did in the 80s and 90s. We're working with a different toolbox, you know, and I think that part of growth as a human and as parents is like we're doing our children a disservice if we are not our authentic selves. Like, how are they ever going to find that? And it's very easy to want that for your kids, but like, why aren't we fighting harder for it for ourselves? You know, like it's
Exactly. Yeah.
that self-awareness. Like, I always come back to that. Like, if you're feeling off balance and you're almost feeling like you're living someone else's life, stop trying to do, like, stop. You know, stop trying to fit in the box. You don't make your own damn box. Burn the box. We don't need a box, you know, and it is like just accepting the fact that we are like, obviously we're living and breathing creatures, but I think like we have to view our identities like that too. You know, like there is this like part of motherhood and it's kind of cool because like where I am and where you are, Jill, like very different, but we both have this understanding that like we are always evolving. I know how much you love that word and I think it's a beautiful word. Like we are evolving every single day. So like my self-care now as a mom and as a 32-year-old is going to look vastly different than it did as a 21-year-old college kid. But I think we forget that. We forget that it's like you can't just go back to your past and assume that those fixes back then are going to fill your cup today. You know, so I also think there's this level of commitment to the now and to the future. Like as you evolve, allow yourself to evolve.
Yeah. And I think that's part of like what Jill was saying with like the testing things out, right? Is like maybe you think that what you did in your 20s was going to fill your cup, so test it out.
Yep.
Does it? And some things, yeah, actually will, but other things, no, not even close, right? You're going to be like, why am I here? I am wasting my time. I feel like I literally just took 30 minutes and lit it on fire. Like I've definitely felt that way before. But yeah, I feel like it's also the boundaries too for me. It's like, in what spaces have I not put enough boundaries up so that I can't protect my peace? You know, I haven't been able to find my compass. I get like out of whack, right? So for me, sometimes it's like I'm feeding too much time into work, or I'm feeding too much time into family stuff or whatever. And then it's like the times where you're feeling like too much in work, that's when I'm like, my self care is spending time with my little one because I feel out of balance and I've missed her, you know? And like, all I want is to bring her with me to the grocery store because I just want some time with just me and her, you know? Whereas other times I'm like, my body needs to not be touched for like 20 minutes. Like, just give me 20 minutes of a sensory break. And then going to the grocery store by myself is like a night out at the club. You know, it just depends on, and I think that's what you guys were talking about, like that self-awareness piece. Where am I in this moment? And then pausing with yourself long enough to ask yourself, why? And then using that why to direct yourself in the right way. That's going to satisfy you intentionally in that moment.
Just know your worth. 100% know your worth. Empower yourself with the self-advocacy and just make it so you see yourself. And like you said, Alex, you know, sometimes that self-worth is being with your kids, and that other time is, I don't want to be touched. And you just need to physically practice. And it takes a lot of practice. You're never going to get ahead of the game if you don't practice, you know, self-advocacy. And I think that that's a huge part of being a mom. You need to practice what you preach. And it's just one of those things that, yes, it takes us emotionally draining moments But when we get there, it's just such, it's the compassion and the emotion and the feelings. And it's just a breath of fresh air because you can, you know, finagle your way into how you want to feel.
Absolutely. Nice. I love this. Yeah, we have about, a minute or two left. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to just share or add any comment.
Yeah.
I think some of the things I struggle with is the expectation and, working full time and then thinking you're going to have these magical moments and like you really have to like capitalize on them, like, oh, we're going to go on this adventure and it's going to be great. And like, 95% of the time it's like a disaster, but like there's moments that are wonderful, but what I've built it up to be in my head and then I get kind of stuck instead of being present. So that has definitely been a pattern and a challenge I've noticed.
Oh, I can feel you on that. It's like you're overcompensating. Like you have to make this like big to do because you're overcompensating for like the amount of time you're not with your kids. So you're going to do this big elaborate thing and then it's so much work. And then, they didn't eat the right thing that day and they're just like biting your face off the whole time. And it's just like not even, you're just like, why are we doing this? But the energy that you spent doing it is amazing though, right? Like planning it and like it's all the thought behind it, right? But I feel you on that one. Yeah, I feel you. Oh.
I think it's okay. Like, again, back to those kind of expectations. I think inevitably we can't necessarily avoid having them. Like, I think that we do, we kind of fantasize about things like, I'm going to bring my kid and do this, or maybe it's something you really loved as a kid and your kid's like, why are we doing this? And then I think it's just being open-minded. Like, I know with my son, I am like a neat freak and he likes to get muddy. And like, I just feel like there's these expectations about a lot of things. And I think that being able to pause, which it seems like Ashley, you're doing that work. Like you're acknowledging that maybe it wasn't what I expected it was going to be. But I even think just acknowledging the need to try to be present in those moments, I think is important. And it's funny because even when your kid is like screaming the whole way home and you feel like it was a complete nightmare, in their mind, usually it was a great time because they are very simple people. Like I don't want to call them simple in a negative way, but it doesn't take much for children to feel our love. And sometimes it's just
Actually, they probably remember. They're probably gonna have all the memories, like all the things that were like exhausting for you, are probably what they're gonna remember. That's a good point, Chantal. Like that is.
yeah. But on the opposite side too, though, because you are a working mom, like doing nothing, there's also value in teaching your kids that like doing nothing is just as valuable. And just having that time at home to do nothing. I think sometimes for all moms, we get this pressure of like, but we stayed home yesterday. We're going to stay home again. Like, how many days in a row can we stay home and do nothing before it becomes weird, And I think you stay home as long as you want, And I think as long as your energies are feeling good and you're in a place where you are feeling like you're present with your kids.
Yep.
Who the hell made those rules? Because there aren't any.
Nope.
Right?
As long as you're putting in that effort and you feel that effort, it's 100%. You're being a parent, whether it's taking them anywhere or just snuggling with them under a blanket on the couch watching a movie. Just even sitting on the floor and playing with blocks. If you do that, just giving that small amount, they'll say, hey, Mom, remember back when we did this? And they'll have that memory, whereas you feel like I should have done so much more. And they're just thinking, I got to spend time with Mom, And that's 100%. That is 100% right there.
Amen. I love that, Colby. That was good. It's like, and I think back on like my childhood too. Like I think sometimes if it like pay attention to how you're feeling that day. Like if going out of the house is actually like overwhelming and you're not able to be present out in that world, but you're feeling like you're grounded at home, you're going to serve them better anyways. Like you're going to be able to be with them and that's really what they want. So like I think just to wrap this up, I feel like it does sort of come down to that self-awareness. I think even when we have these big elaborate plans with our kids, it does kind of come back to like what's the weather inside of us. Because at the end of the day, like we have to fight for our balance first. Because right now I think we talked about it last week, like yes, we don't want to come like we're raising humans, of course, and it's not like an easy feat. However, like we need to model these things for them. You know, and I do find sometimes if you're having the pressure of being go, go, go on the go all the time, and they see you kind of living in the chaos, and like when we, you know, you guys know what that feels like when we're on the hamster wheel, and every day is like, and I think sometimes like that I don't, is martyrism? I'm gonna call it that, martyrism. I think sometimes we give medals to like moms and people that like do all the things in our society. It's like, yay, you did everything. You're about to fall apart at the seams, but you got everything done today.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is the focus. And I actually think that as moms, we need to break that
Yeah.
and almost like boil that down to like, what did you accomplish today that actually was like, I always do the big three, and we can talk about that another time, but it's like, what are the three things today that I need to accomplish or want to accomplish? And anything else that isn't on that list, like, sorry, not today, move it to the next day, you know? And I do think sometimes we need to slow down a little bit and almost like realize that it's not necessarily how many tasks we've gotten done in that day. And it's really kind of more about that self-awareness and being able to check in and like, how am I feeling, and doing your best, right, guys? Like we've talked about that. That looks different every single day. That looks different. So thanks for coming. I love it. I love seeing you guys'
Says
Thanks, ladies. Always a great combo.
always.